Master Chief, a one-man army, the Covenant's demon and the savior of humankind. But is he really a savior? Today, we put that to the test. We played through a Halo 3 mission called the Covenant, with the aim to not only save every Marine we came across, but also to bring them along with us to the end, under any means necessary. Welcome to Save the Marines. In this mission, the Chief is joined by the Arbiter and a couple of highly skilled elites. We were tasked to fight off hordes of the Covenant forces, deactivate a couple of shield generating towers, and to eventually take down 2 Type 47 Scarabs. To meet our first recruits, we needed to clear out a landing zone. We made quick work of the enemies, and a Pelican dropped us off a Warthog, a Mongoose, and 4 fresh-faced Marines. You might think these 4 Marines wouldn't pose much of a problem, but let me introduce you to the true enemy of this challenge. The Marines' mysterious and stubborn AI. Remember, we had to bring these Marines with us, and while you think we might have enough room for them in these vehicles, these particular Marines refuse to drive, and we only have enough passenger slots for the 3 of them. But we had a plan. By walking a bit ahead, we were able to hijack a couple of Ghosts. These don't have any passenger seats, but they are pretty good at pushing. We quickly named the leftover problematic Marine Barreled and tried to encourage him to move forwards. Unfortunately, Barreled's stubbornness is not to be underestimated. He really did not want to move, constantly trying to move back to the drop-off point. But we had a trick. By having one of us proceed forwards and trigger this checkpoint, Barreled's pathing breaks, making him much more compliant to be pushed. The great pushing of Barreled, as it will be known for generations, was actually a tedious affair. You see, even though Barrel's pathing broke, there was still some logic to avoid incoming vehicles. This meant we had to push Barreled extremely slowly by barely tilting the left stick. After 10 minutes of pushing, Barreled's unwillingness to drive faded away, and he got in a nearby abandoned Ghost. As I said, the AI in this game works in mysterious ways. We escort the Marines towards the first tower, taking them out of their vehicles and then proceeding forwards on foot. One of them was a bit unsure whether to follow, but we don't leave any Marines behind. We stepped through the door, walking ahead of the Marines. They move on a set path, so we had to take out the enemies quickly. Fortunately, this tower was not too difficult. We got to the lift with all 3 Marines alive. Wait, 3? We went searching for the missing Marine. Apparently he had cold feet. He was standing just below the lift, so our best guess was the Marine thought they were already at their goal. So we decided to push them forwards in an attempt to restart their pathing. This actually worked, and we finally had all 4 Marines together. The Marines won't follow us up the lift, but don't worry, we'll be back soon. At the top, we took out the enemies, and while the others deactivated the shield generator, I waited by the lift so we could head back down as quickly as possible. Time was of the essence. As the lift descended, we saw our precious Marines were under attack. Just like the heroes we were meant to be, we swooped in to save them. As a reward, we were given brand new vehicles with a new recruit to boot. Fortunately for us, our new vehicles gave us enough passenger slots for everyone. Sorry Barreled, no more pushing required. We did however have to get a little bit creative, sorting out our own transport. We drove, or surfed, back the way we came to find 4 Hornets along with 2 new Marines. This took our total up to 7. And with 8 passenger slots on the Hornets, we shouldn't have any problem here. That's what we thought anyway, but for some reason 2 of the Marines refused to cooperate. We could not find a way to get them in, so we had no choice but to revert to the last checkpoint. which meant we had to redo our little drive while taking significantly more risks with our driving. When we got there, all the Marines behaved themselves perfectly and actually got in the Hornets. What changed? We have absolutely no idea. We flew into battle with our Marines sitting precariously at the edge of our Hornets. We took extra care not to get hit, but we weren't careful enough. About halfway there, we hit this loading zone and one of my Marines just disappeared. We reverted to the last checkpoint, which wasn't as far back this time, but alas, my Marine yet again despawned. So we came up with a plan. We took out all the enemies on this little island so we could land, kick out the Marines and swap weapons with them. And amazingly, it worked. We finally managed to get through the loading zone with all our Marines intact. Once we arrived at the next tower, we took out as many enemies as we could from the air. Once we got most of them, we took out the 2 anti-air race, which triggered 2 friendly phantoms to appear. These phantoms didn't contain Marines, but allied elites instead. Our heroic nature forbade us from leaving them be. We had to protect them as well. So we parked our Hornets and helped the elites fight off the remaining enemies. This time the Marines waited outside the tower, which would actually end up being more of a hindrance later on. Instead, our new elite friends would come with us. Elites have energy shields, making them much more robust, which was good for us, as this tower was much more challenging than the previous one. We used grenades to make quick work of these hunters, allowing us to focus on the drones above. Once we got to the lift, our companions opted to wait downstairs while we went up to deal with the remaining enemies. Once we killed everyone, we deactivated the final shield. However, this signaled an arrival of a new threat, the Flood. These infectious creatures not only posed a threat to our elite friends, but to the 7 Marines waiting outside. We had a lot of saving to do. We rushed downstairs to protect our elites. We had to be quick, otherwise the Marines outside would face a fate worse than death. But we couldn't be too quick. If we were, the door to the tower could close, despawning any elites trapped inside. It's safe to say that this took us quite a few attempts, but we did finally manage to clear out the Flood with everyone still alive. As a reward for our efforts, we were given a Warthog, Mongoose, Scorpion and 7 new Marines. But before we can continue, we need to talk about the elites. You see, in single player, the Arbiter would escort the elites to the base of the tower. A friendly phantom would then pick up the Arbiter, signalling the elites to walk down and join the rest of the Marines. But in multiplayer, it's different. As player 2 plays as the Arbiter, a friendly phantom never appears to pick them up. This means the elites never join the Marines, and it's more than just where they're standing. In multiplayer, the elites will refuse to get into vehicles and will continually try to path back here. Unlike with Barreled, there's no checkpoint we can get to that will break their pathing without causing them to despawn. While technically it may be possible to block off their route and fight against their pathing, it would be extremely finicky, so we decided to leave them behind. Besides, this is Save the Marines, not Save the Elites. We'll leave that for a future challenge. We can now draw our focus to our 14 Marines, and it turns out they aren't much of a walk in the park either. Our vehicles gave us 8 passenger slots. We could try and bring more by having them drive, but they aren't the best drivers. By having one of us go ahead and hijack an enemy prowler, it gave us 3 additional passenger slots, but that's still 3 short. Just like with the elites, these Marines will continually try to path back here. So pushing the last 3 Marines just won't work. Instead, we had to come up with a new strategy. We drove our 4 vehicles through the tunnel, leaving our 3 Marines behind for now. If we went too far, the tunnel would get sealed off and despawn those Marines. The Warthog and Mongoose drivers went a bit ahead and worked together to kick out the passengers of the Warthog. The tank and Prowler acted as an airlock, letting the now empty Warthog back through, but not the Marines on foot. This meant it would only take a few more trips to get the Marines through the tunnel. That's assuming our airlock didn't have any leaks, which I will neither confirm nor deny. Once we eventually got everyone through, we made a mad dash forward, hit the trigger to seal the tunnel, which in turn broke the Marines' pathing. As head of pushing affairs, it was my duty to escort the 3 Marines that weren't in vehicles. Fortunately, the tank is slower and wider than the Ghost I used with barreled, making it much more suited for pushing. We had just entered the calm before the storm. These cliffs don't pose a huge threat to us, especially with us driving, but we're about to fight 2 scarabs while trying to rescue our final Marines. We didn't fancy having to worry about the 14 Marines we already had, so we came up with a unique strategy. A strategy we would learn to regret. First, 2 of us went to hijack a couple more prowlers to add to our collection, and while I babysat the majority of the Marines, my friends began to ferry them up 3 at a time to this slightly glitchy plateau, which we called the safe zone. For those of you particularly knowledgeable about this game, you might know that there's a secret Marine that can be found up here in single player. Unfortunately, they're not present in multiplayer, but this is how we knew it was a good area to keep our Marines safe. This ferrying effort did not go to plan. We had to reset multiple times, one of which may have been my fault. But after over 40 minutes, we finally got all 14 of our friends safely secured. Now, for the final leg. We left one of us to stay with the Marines in the safe zone while the rest of us proceeded forward. As we got closer to the boss fight, 2 friendly Hornets arrived. As they landed, a Pelican dropped off a Warthog to help us out, and we spotted some reinforcements flying in from above. We kicked out the 2 Marines hovering in front of us, and while I looked after them in my tank, the other 2 departed, triggering the 2 scarabs. The best way to make sure the remaining Marines didn't get killed was to take out the scarabs as quickly as possible, and that's exactly what we did. With 1 Hornet on each scarab, and with me helping out from afar, we took them out in only 30 seconds. Huh, that was easy. Maybe we didn't need to use these safe zone shenanigans after all. We apprehended the Warthog and signalled down the 2 AI controlled Hornets, and with that we had rescued the last 6 Marines. Now we just had to get the rest of them down here. We started off by activating this bridge so we could get a checkpoint in case things went wrong. My friends then killed themselves so they could respawn in the safe zone and start working on getting the Marines back down. Meanwhile, I was left to look after our 6 new recruits. I needed to transport them to the base of the cliff so I could look after the Marines my friends successfully got down, but as my tank only had 5 passenger slots, it was back to pushing one last time. Getting the Marines down was significantly more difficult than getting them up. Despite having many close calls, we finally managed to get them all down in a single attempt. One painful 40-minute attempt. Once we got them all down, we shuttled them to the site of the Scarab battle. This was as far as we could take them, so here we were done. We'd rescued all 20 Marines. We'd lined them all up for a photo opportunity, but as I was moving some debris out of the way to take a better photo, disaster struck. A Marine decided to take control of one of our prowlers while our back was turned. They not only started driving off, but they struck one of the other Marines at high speed. We rushed over to help, but alas, the Marine was dead. For context, our last checkpoint was when we first activated the bridge. If we reverted now, we'd have to get all the Marines down from the safe zone again. But how did our heroes feel about this? These saviors of humanity. They couldn't just let a Marine die under their protection. They must have been feeling devastated by this loss, right? Turns out, something had changed. While they started this mission with good intentions, over the course of the last few hours, Master Chief and his friends have been growing increasingly frustrated by these Marines. They saw them as disobedient cowards, and now one of them was dead, not by the Flood or the Covenant, but by another stupid Marine. It wasn't just apathy they felt though. They laughed, they found the whole situation funny. Something had changed in the minds of our so-called heroes, and I'm sorry for calling them that. But I need you to understand, before that day, we did think of them as heroes. The one death was not enough. These villains started slaughtering the remaining Marines. And it wasn't just the elites, but Master Chief himself opened fire against his own kind. It didn't take long for only 3 Marines to be left alive. They begged for mercy, but they got something far worse. The villains toyed with them, a competition. They split into 2 teams, 1 Marine on one prowler, 2 on the other. The 1 Marine prowler would get the high ground, and the last one left alive would be allowed to live. The fight was over quickly, and indeed, 1 Marine was left alive. Carbine Carrie, well, that was what they called her. She had won, she got to live. But there's no mercy in this story. They drove her over to the bridge, and with no hesitation, executed her on the spot. This is not the story you came here for, I understand, and I'm sorry. But this is only the beginning. Their atrocities did not stop here. I must tell you their story of bloodshed and betrayal. I need to show you truly how far heroes can fall. Join me next time for Kill the Marines.